And over to this, an MSNBC host is going scorched earth on the Democratic Party, claiming they're not doing enough to denounce Elon Musk and Doge. Here's host Michael Steele over the weekend.
I would actually, you know what? I'd just like you to show that you that you got a little emotion about the fact that people are losing their jobs indiscriminately. That this individual sitting down the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has given absolute power to one man who brings his son into the Oval Office, whose son says to him, "You're not the president." So I just like to see somebody wake the hell up and get excited about the fact that your country is under assault. They're not at the gate anymore. They're in your bedrooms. They're in your living rooms. They're in your businesses. They got your data. They got all your stuff. Elon Musk has his tentacles in everything you're doing, not just off of X, but now he's in the Treasury Department. He's in the Labor Department. He's in the Department of Homeland Security. And nobody seems to give a So that's all I want, somebody to show that they care enough to get out their fat and say something about it.
The Nazis are in control of our government.
No, they're not. You know they're not. Trump's not a Nazi, neither is Elon. Elon's our favorite African-American immigrant. Elon's an African-American. You don't like African-Americans?
No, not that one.
Oh my God!
Not that one. Trump is Hitler reincarnated.
Everybody is Hitler, though, to the left, right?
Huh?
Everyone is Hitler to the left. Like, everyone you don't like is Hitler, right?
I'm not even talking to you anymore.
Do you agree with Doge? The Department of Government?
No, I do not agree with Doge.
You don't like them finding the fraud in our government?
They slaughtered our government in 3 weeks' time.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we already talked about the mass protests that are happening today against President Trump and Elon Musk. Okay, now this is mainly fired federal workers due to the fact that, hey, we got to downsize the government. Okay, the government is too fat. We got to trim some of that fat. We got to make the government leaner, which means we have to make some hard decisions. And obviously, some people are not liking those decisions that are being made. Some people are not liking any of the decisions that are being made, okay? But the liberal media, they want to make these protests out to be much bigger than they really are, okay? In fact, you have Democrat operative James Carville basically trying to say that, hey, this is the beginning of the Trump resistance.
Because what the heck happened to love one another?
Yes!
We are here for the cause of love. This is not about money. This is about the people. And the people, I see people with disabilities, you're beautiful. I see black people, you're beautiful. I see immigrants, you're beautiful. I see queer people, you're beautiful. I see Christians, Islamics, natives, anyone, you are beautiful. Thank you for existing, if no one's told you that. I thank you for existing. God thanks you for existing. Christians stand with you. Queer Christians stand with you. We are here and we are ready to fight because this is not okay.
This is a news day. It's all over the country. It's been put together by grassroots organizers. It's very now. It doesn't feel like the 2017 version or the campaign of last year. It's addressing a lot of concerns about the current agenda, including we're seeing signs and protesters saying, James, this is not even what people voted for. Even if they are anti-Trump voters, they're calling out a lot of things that they say exceed the president's authority or are dangerous or are gutting of the federal government. What's happening here? What do you see?
What I see is something organic coming up from around the country. I don't think that there was a lot of organization. If you remember in 2017, you had like 1 million women on the mall. This is happening all around the country. So the question is, how should Democratic politicians respond to this? And what I think they should do is what we call in rural America, play possum. Just let it go. Don't get in the way of it. Or as we like to say, don't just stand there, do nothing. Let this germinate. We don't need to we don't need to get in front of it. This freight train is moving. Let's just get out of the way. And then we're going to have time. In the immortal words of Dalton in Roadhouse, be nice until it's time not to be nice. And that time is coming shortly.
Yeah. So the problem with James Carville and his analysis here is that although this may be quote unquote organic, it's just leftists, right? It's just liberals that are upset, right? People who are extremely Trump deranged that, you know, they live their lives protesting, right? Their life is all about finding something to be upset about. They probably would have been upset no matter what Trump did. The first few weeks he got into office, they probably would have been protesting anyways. I mean, they were protesting when he won, okay? They were protesting when he got inaugurated, and they're going to be protesting for the next 4 years, right? It doesn't matter what happens. But the people who actually do matter, okay, are the so-called swing voters, okay? The people who could go either way. And what they think about President Trump's agenda is that they overwhelmingly approve. And CNN found out about this, and let's just say the news anchors were devastated to learn that former Biden voters, people who voted for Biden and then voted for Trump, overwhelmingly approve of what President Trump is doing.
We wanted to have you on because you do a lot of focus groups. You really get behind the numbers, the poll numbers, to the sentiments of voters. And it's so interesting. You've been speaking with a number of voters who were Hillary Clinton 2016, Joe Biden 2020, and then went for Trump in 2024. How are these folks seeing the early days of Trump's second term?
Pretty well.
Really?
And they're reacting to it because they love the pace of change. They were very fed up over the last 4 years. They wanted action. They wanted results. They looked at prices. They looked at affordability, looked at immigration, and they didn't see anything happening. They still don't like what he says, but they like what he does. And these are Democrats now who felt that they were not securing the border. They were doing nothing to prevent illegal immigration, that nothing was actually happening. They wanted to see a reduction in wasteful Washington spending, and they're seeing that. So what they tell me is, I wish you'd be a little bit less rude. But at the same time, they like what he's doing. They believe he's serious about it. And for the first time, they have confidence in the future, which is why you now see some significant shifts in the polling about the expectations for the direction in the coming years.
It's a big wake-up call for Democrats.
I'm waiting for them to get a message. I'm waiting for them to unify and to understand that to oppose and to be the resistance, which is what some of them use that phrase, that's not what Democrats in grassroots areas want from them. They may not want the approach that Trump is doing, President Trump. By the way, I now know to say President Trump. But they do want action, and they don't see action from the Democrats.
How are the voters who swung the election for President Trump feeling about his first few weeks in office? Our friends at Engagious talked to some Arizona voters who switched from voting for Joe Biden in 2020 to Trump in 2024, and so far, they mostly like what they see.
I just think he's trying to get America back on track as quickly as possible, given the state that it was left in from the previous administration.
It feels more merit and transparency that I'm getting from the administration so far.
I approve of a lot of the stuff that he's doing with the border and everything.
He's put other countries on notice that were to be taken seriously.
For the most part, I feel like he's on the right track by keeping transgenders out of women's sports. That's number one.
All 11 Biden-Trump voters say they approve of Donald Trump's first weeks in office. What we are seeing right now is what Donald Trump campaigned on.
Right.
We've said that umpteen times now in the past 4 weeks. What he didn't campaign on was the Elon Musk of it all. That Elon Musk would be going in and the person with his team doing this and doing this at the pace with which they are moving. I want you to listen to what Jonas G., he is one of those Biden to Trump voters, said about that. Doesn't seem that concerned.
He's moving fast to dismantle the corruption, which there's so much of it. Everywhere he turns, there's stuff that they have to take out. Went to one agency and what, 80%, 90% of that agency's been spending stuff that nobody would approve of.
I want you to talk about that, Isaac, but then just that last part, 80 to 90% of the agency spending stuff nobody would approve of. We don't know that because there's no accountability. Maybe at the end of the day, once we can actually look at it, perhaps that's going to be right, but we have no idea, which also speaks to the fact that there is such a fractured media consumption environment that is getting even more so. We don't know. I mean, Jonas G is listening to, they said at the beginning, some mainstream media, but who knows where this information is coming from?
Yeah, and that's part.
So what you were mentioning earlier about flooding the zone, seeing the president all the time, every day, multiple times a day, which could not be more different from Joe Biden. And the question is whether that's what these voters wanted.
He said he was going to do this, and this is what he's starting to get done.
And he only has 4 years to do it. It's not like he can run again. He already did his first term. So some of these things you can't fix overnight. So he has to get started early on. He has 4 years, and he made promises in his campaign. He won because of those promises. So he's getting to work.
Yeah, and I was also struck in other clips, and I've heard this as voters, of the term transparency to describe Donald Trump and Elon Musk going on camera and talking. Somebody might be looking at their statements and say, but what he just said wasn't true. We fact-checked it. He's counter something that his own administration said an hour earlier. Doesn't matter if the president's saying it, it sounds transparent. The other word I'm not hearing is Congress. And there is this assumption in these focus groups, the Congress that you're not hearing from isn't able to act. I heard Democrats on the top of the constitutional crisis say, come to Congress, pass a bill. And that just seems so yesterday.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious, right? I am sure that Dana Bash did not like to hear swing voters, people who voted for Biden, who decided to vote for Trump this time around, say, yeah, we'll approve of this. We'll approve of everything that Trump is doing in his first 2 to 3 weeks in office. Okay. And see, here's the thing. I was talking about this in an earlier video that I made today about the Europeans boo whining and crying literally over J.D. Vance's speech and the fact that President Trump is negotiating with Russia to end the war in Ukraine without Ukraine and Zelensky. I said the polls showing that the American people essentially feel like the United States is supporting Ukraine too much really shows you how ineffective the propaganda is from the liberal media at this point, right? Like, it is just totally ineffective. Like, it doesn't matter at all how much they scream at the top of their lungs about how we should support Ukraine, how Trump is bad, how democracy is under attack, how there's a constitutional crisis, Trump is Hitler. It literally doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter in the minds of the voters, okay? It is just not effective at all, right? It reminds me of when you play Pokemon, right? Everybody playing Pokemon growing up knows how important types are, right? In regards to the type of Pokemon that you have, like a dark type, fire type, electric type, water type, whatever, right? And when you have a type mismatch, some of your moves are going to be ineffective, right? If you use the wrong type of move, like for example, I believe electric is totally ineffective against rock types and maybe ground types. I don't remember exactly, but my point is that when you use the electric attack against a ground type Pokemon or a rock type Pokemon or whatever, is either not very effective or is not effective at all, right? And that's what's happening with the mainstream liberal media, right? They're using these attacks against Trump and they're just not effective. In fact, when you run out of a certain attack, you actually start to hurt your own Pokemon, right? And that's actually what's happening to the media because they've spammed Trump derangement so much that they're now hurting themselves. Every single time they come out here and they launch some Trump deranged attack against the president, they just hurt their own credibility, right? That's what's happening at this point. They've spammed Trump derangement to the point where their attacks are actually now helping Trump. And again, it's hurting them, okay? That's what's happening, 100%. But if you listen to these swing voters and what they're saying and the things that they agree with the Trump administration on, it really shows you how Democrats are playing this all wrong, right? Just totally incorrectly. They really believe that, hey, we just need to be opposed to Trump because he's Trump. And that just doesn't work anymore, right? We've had 8 years of Trump derangement. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is why I have said that Democrats have to move to the middle. They have to become a centrist party because that's where the country's at, right? The country is essentially in a centrist place. And I don't mean European centrist, okay? Because some people would characterize, the far leftists would characterize the Democrat Party right now as a centrist party. No, the Democrat Party is not a centrist party. They may be centrist by Canadian or European standards, but by American standards, in my opinion, they're far left, especially on social issues, okay? So they're going to have to move back towards the center, the actual center, okay, if they want a chance. And these voters and the things that they're saying backs up my hypothesis, what I've been talking about for the last 2 or 3 weeks now, which is that ultimately, at the end of the day, the American people voted for this. We voted for the mass deportation. 60% of this country wants all illegal immigrants deported. So Democrats don't have room to come out here and to push these talking points about how there needs to be a bipartisan solution where we have a pathway towards citizenship and we need to talk about DACA and the dream. Like, the American people don't want to hear all that, right? We don't want to hear all of that, right? We don't need a compromise with Democrats on an issue where the American people overwhelmingly agree that not only do we need mass deportations, but the border has to be secure shut, okay? We don't have to compromise with Democrats on this. We don't. We don't at all. When you talk about downsizing the federal government, the American people overwhelmingly agree that, yeah, the government should be more efficient. We shouldn't be wasting our tax dollars, sending it overseas to all of these non-governmental organizations and entities that spend our tax dollars on things that have nothing to do with helping out the American people, especially when we're $36+ trillion in debt, okay? Especially when we're on the verge of hyperinflation, right? We should be spending money on stuff like this. We have to cut the fat. And the American people are smart enough to understand that. But CNN doesn't think so. Did you listen to Dana Bash express her discontent for where these voters are possibly getting their news, right? She knows they're not watching CNN. I mean, nobody's watching CNN. So we know they're not watching CNN by default. But she's concerned that they're watching some alternative news outlet, right? That's not, the mainstream legacy media, okay? Where all they do every single day is, talk trash about Trump and Elon Musk. No, the American people aren't paying attention to these outlets anymore, right? They have absolutely no effectiveness. And again, the crazy part about this is that Democrats used to be a sane party. I mean, just as recently as Obama. Hey, he's known as the deporter in chief. This dude talked about how it is important to root out wasteful spending within the government to make the government more efficient. Okay, he tried an initiative to do that. It failed. Bill Clinton tried an initiative to downsize the federal workforce as well, too. So, the Democrats, they used to be in a much better place. But fast forward to today, because they are, for whatever reason, convinced that they need to appeal to their far left base of people who are a minority of individuals in this country, a very small minority, they've essentially become the lunatic party, right? They've become the party of freaks, weirdos, low testosterone men, and high calorie women, right? That's their party at this point, okay? And I mean, reasonable people, okay, are just not on board with it. And I think that this focus group really shows you the disconnect between the media, the Democrat Party, and the actual people. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.